It's a name and a face that has been in the city of Torrance for the last 60 years. 88-year-old Jerry Ronan has never been married and has never driven a day in his life. He loves to read, take walks, and enjoys talking about the various works of art displayed throughout his house.
This was a painting that was done by Eugene Hess Jr., Eugene Hess Jr. in 1854.
But it's Jerry's teaching philosophies from his days at Torrance High School that he will forever hold close to his heart.
Adults are being watched all the time by teenagers. They model. They don't always listen, but they know when dad is cheating or when dad is cutting a corner or mom is not being perfectly honest. They see that, and those are their models.
Jerry Ronan was born on March 2, 1926 in the cowboy town of Fort Pierce, South Dakota. He was the sixth of 9 children. His father Thomas was a railroad man, and his mother Maggie was a homemaker. In 1929, just a few years after he was born, the stock market crashed and the Great Depression began. Even with the U.S. economy in shambles, Jerry's childhood was still very stable.
It was a real smooth, great childhood. I've always figured I was born with a silver spoon in my mouth because life was good. It was Depression years, but my parents were both good managers, so I have very happy recollections of growing up in South Dakota.
In 1944, a wide-eyed 18-year-old Jerry graduated from high school and joined the Navy. He would serve 2.5 years during World War II. Although he never went overseas, his time in the service was invaluable.
Well, I tell you, I don't have any medals or decorations. I did what they wanted me to do. They sent me to school, San Diego. I took boots in Farragut, Idaho, and it was interesting. I was at Camp Waldron at Farragut, Idaho, and Johnny Waldron, for whom the camp was named, was a Fort Pierce boy. So after boot camp, I went to school in San Diego, and then I spent a lot of time at the destroyer base in San Diego, and that was sort of my Navy career, but I loved it. I really thought about staying in.
Jerry left the Navy in 1946. It was during his time in the service that he thought about being an artist, but his thought process would quickly change.
I came out of the Navy and I read articles about the starving artist, and I decided that that was not probably a good idea. So I thought I would take pharmacy, but I really wasn't interested in that. So I became a teacher in the making.
In 1947, Jerry decided to attend Creighton University, where he would graduate with a degree in political science. About 1 year after graduation, Jerry packed up his bags and bought a one-way ticket on the Queen Mary to Europe.
I always wanted to go, and now or never. And they say I bought a one-way ticket. I didn't know when I'd come home. I just wanted to get there. And it was wonderful. It was wonderful.
Jerry would explore Europe all by himself, seeing all that he could. After about 2.5 years, he would eventually make his return to South Dakota to start the next chapter in his life, becoming a teacher.
I had an offer to go to Lemon, South Dakota, up near the Black Hills. So I taught there a year. Great year. I was tempted to stay there because I really liked it, except I liked the lights. I liked the big city.
He spent 1 year in Lemon, and in 1955, for the first time in his life, as he says, Jerry had to look for a job. So he packed up and left for sunny Southern California, where he would land in Torrance.
I interviewed in Torrance on a Friday. First week of school was ending, and there was a man, a new hire, that after 5 days decided that he didn't want to stay in Torrance. So there was an opening. So they hired me on Friday, interview, and I started teaching on Monday.
Jerry taught English and history at Torrance High School and also became a guidance counselor, helping the students in many capacities.
You try to encourage them to see a more grown-up attitude toward things. The first thing you have to do is listen. And that is so important from the time a child is born. It's so important to listen to them, because when they speak, when they're telling their side of the story or something, very often they're hearing where they in fact were not doing exactly what they should have been doing. And it's much better getting to their ears that way than from the voice of someone who's preaching to them.
And in 1992, after spending 37 years as a teacher and counselor at Torrance High School, Jerry decided to retire.
A lot of my contemporaries had retired, and they were urging me to retire because there are things I could do. And I didn't want to stay too long. I've seen teachers that stayed too long. They didn't like going to work in the morning, and when that happens, get out. So I decided to retire, and I was miserable. I missed it.
Not long after, Jerry started volunteering all over Southern California, which would soon fill the void of teaching. In the early 2000s, while volunteering for the Torrance Historical Society, Jerry spearheaded the Names on the Wall project. The purpose of the project is to gather and preserve the life stories of each of the 146 Torrance military personnel who lost their lives in the service.
My proposal was to put a face on each name. We have a file for every one of those names at the Historical Society, and we are putting information about the individual in his or her file so that grandchildren, nieces, nephews, offspring, future interested parties can go to the file and find out about this name. We've been working on that for a long time. Bit by bit, picture by picture, anecdote by anecdote, we add to the folder. I think it's an excellent project.
From his humble beginnings in South Dakota, to mentoring thousands of students at Torrance High School, to volunteering his time in so many different ways, Jerry Ronan has enjoyed every second of it.
Well, I'm sure that there's selfish motivation in most of it because of the reward that came to me. I'm feeling a little awed at sitting here spewing out all this information or how to live, because the world is full of people who have really great stories, and I can think of so many people who give so much time and energy in volunteer capacities that exceed mine totally.